city council workshop into session at this time. There's no action to this. We don't need a quorum, but we do have everyone here except for T.J. Wilkerson and Carol Lane. What I'd like to do is to point out that this is a workshop for the purposes of gathering information about updating our vendor ordinances and such. And so there will be opportunity for comment from anyone here, but we'd like to wait until we've been able to discuss all the items. Perhaps you could jot some questions down and have those for that time so that we can continue with our meeting as is needed. And so we have one workshop item. Workshop on the proposed mobile food unit, mobile food court text amendments to Chapter 64, peddlers, solicitors, vendors of the City Municipal Code and Zoning Ordinance Section 98-88, table of permitted uses and special uses. Mr. Palmer?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to talk loudly so you don't hear me. And there are copies of the ordinance on the back table if anybody wants to grab them before we start. At your places, you'll see a copy of the larger copies, the actual ordinance, the red text of the additions, the red strike through of the deletions, and the black text is the current ordinance. So what I'd like to do is go through briefly, just touch on the history, talk about the amendment process, and then hit the wave tops of major changes, and then open it up for discussion and go from there. So Nikki, can you hit the next slide? So you all know the history better than I do. The city's looked at regulating this activity for a while. I think there have been some proposals that came before the council, discussion at some level, but there were never any changes adopted. So when I got here, one of the tasks that I was given by the council was to take a look at this and see if I could come back with an ordinance that meets the city's needs. So for me, when I do these amendments, and just to get a little background, I've been in local government for 25 years. I've done this quite a bit. My process for an amendment is always to take a look at our current ordinance. I'll take a look at our issues, talk to the policymakers about what issues we have, talk to the city staff, and then I'll look at other communities' ordinances. And we all know the communities out there that are doing things right. We all have those few cities that we know that we think of when we say, okay, that city's doing it right. I'll look at those cities that I think are doing it right, that I know that are up on the best practices of local government, and I'll try to cherry pick whatever they have in their ordinance to see if it fits for us. And then I'll go through and try to tailor that to meet our needs. So when we're, next slide, Nikki. So when we're looking through this ordinance here, again, you see all the red in the beginning. You'll see the definitional changes that we made, and a lot of these definitions come from the actual state code. One of the other things I'll do when I'm doing an ordinance amendment is I'll go through and I'll try to clean up a lot of the stuff that may be outdated, maybe conflicting with other ordinances, or just may cite a code that just doesn't exist anymore. We have a couple of those cases here. But most of the definitional changes were, again, derived from the state. Two of the main changes that are in there are the expanded definitions for mobile food unit and mobile food court. So for mobile food court means a land use approved for a special use permit. Special use permits in section 98.88 table of permitted uses and special uses and developed in conformity with an approved site plan where two or more mobile food vendors congregate and offer edible goods for sale to the public. And then mobile food unit, mobile food vendor means a vehicle-mounted, self or otherwise propelled, self-contained food service operation designed to be readily movable and used to store, prepare, display, serve, or sell food. The term mobile food unit vendor shall include, and then it lists three items: mobile food trucks, concession carts, and concession trailers. So those are the two definitions we added to cover this activity we're talking about. Moving on to exemptions in the ordinance. There are several things that one of the main things we exempted was that we didn't have before was cottage food products. So if you flip over to page 4 of the ordinance, you'll see farm products and full mobile food units selling only non-refrigerated farm products in unrefined state is exempted. Any mobile food unit operating under a city street festival permit is exempted. So right now, if you're a mobile food unit and you want to be a part of a street festival, like the Mud Bugs we had, under our current ordinance, you have to get a separate permit. What we're doing is we're consolidating these permits. So if you have a street festival permit and you're a mobile food vendor that wants to be a part of that street festival, you're under that permit. You don't have to pay another mobile food unit fee and get that separate permit. So we combined those, we exempted that from the street festivals. Cottage food operations, and then of course ice cream trucks, just because I don't know how to regulate something that you just can't catch. They've been around longer than most of us in this room have been, so, you know, for me, ice cream trucks, we just exempt the outright from this ordinance. So then the next one will be, go to the next one, Nikki, please. And then we define the location where the activity is allowed. So if you flip over to that table of permitted uses, section 98-88, table of permitted uses, special uses, which is in the zoning ordinance, provides for all the uses that are permitted by district. So if you flip through to page 5, you'll see 2 additions, and I know they're not in order, I'm going to change that. Right. Mobile food unit and mobile food court added to the table of uses. You go to the next one, Nikki.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right, I had this back. I can't really do that anyway. So if you're looking at the table of uses, you'll see on the first page you have the column there, which is R1, R2, B, ID, I, and CC. So the R1 is your single-family residential, 2 is your multifamily, B is your commercial, ID is industrial, I is institutional, CC stands for city council. So then flipping back to the table of permitted uses on page 5, mobile food units are permitted in the commercial district, permitted in the industrial district, and permitted in the institutional district by right. However, if you're a mobile food unit and you want to operate in the historic district overlay, you have to go and get a special use permit from the city council in order to do that. And that is specific to the historic district. Mobile food courts are only allowed by special use permit, which requires them, an applicant to go before planning commission, submit a site plan, they'll have a public hearing, public comment period, and then the planning commission makes a recommendation on that special use permit to the city council, who has the final say in authorizing that. So it's, you know, for these districts, we're adding some additional regulations. We're not saying no, but we're saying yes, if you meet these standards, then you can be permitted to go in that district. Can you go back to the other slide, maybe the one before this one?
I'm about to go up. Second.
Let's go back to,
Yes.
there we go. And then we changed the fees. So that was one of the things that we talked about early on was the duration and the fees. So the way we have it now, you see the class on the left side, you have peddler, hawker, solicitor, transient dealer, and then mobile food unit. So you see the red strikeouts, and you see what I have proposed there, which I went through a bunch of other cities and looked at their fee schedules and really couldn't find any kind of consistency. It's all over the place. The terms are all over the place. I really found no uniformity in what cities were charging. So, you know, for me, I'm kind of looking at the activity. And if you look at where I've struck out for, this has nothing to do with food trucks, but peddler, hawker, solicitor, transient dealer, I don't know about y'all, but, you know, when I'm home, I don't know if I really like folks coming around the neighborhoods and doing this type of stuff. So let's up the fee a little bit and have them have a little more skin in the game, and then maybe move that to a 6-month fee. Again, this goes back to me cleaning up some of the other parts of the ordinance while I get there. So that's with those other activities and other classes. So mobile food unit, I'm proposing just a flat, on this one, I'm just proposing a flat $600 fee for 6 months. But this is just the start of that conversation. You can see in the other, on the right-hand side, I've got some other examples up there. I mean, we really can do whatever the council likes. We can do a 6-month term, we can do a 1-month term, we can do a 3-month term. You know, for me, I think the applicant or the vendor has to have some skin in the game. So having a higher fee, to me, will keep out some of the fly-by-night vendors that may want to try to come in. I think only serious business people are going to come in and pay $600 for a 6-month fee to do business in the city of Montgomery. But I'm not an expert on this industry. I'm not an expert on these fees, and I'll leave this open to you all to decide on where you want to go with this. So anyway, if we're going to get held up on anything, it'll probably be the fees. And then you can see on the bottom of this slide, so the only other edits I made was I expanded the information requirements for the application. So if you go to the last couple of pages, you see we just kind of cleaned up, we're requiring a whole bunch of information on the application side, and then we remove some of the ordinance requirements that are being captured through that application process. So basically, these are the major changes. A lot of cleanup in this ordinance, a lot of definitional changes, but for the most part, the material changes really have to do with the locations and the fees. Can you hit the next slide? Next one. So I took it to the planning commission last week and presented it to them. So the planning commission's role really has to do with the zoning district amendments, which is the table of uses. But without the context of the whole ordinance, they really can't just zero in on that. So my recommendation to them was to look at the entire ordinance text and make a recommendation back to the city council on whatever changes they think we need to make or adoption or otherwise. They're going to hold a public hearing and then transmit their recommendation to the council, at which time we can bring it for consideration. We'll probably have a new council coming on board at that point, so we can have another workshop just to kind of recapture that conversation and then move forward from there. So what I'm looking for tonight is just some input, some feedback. Mayor, if you want to allow folks from the public to provide feedback, that's where we're at this point. I just want to get your ideas on what I'm proposing so far, and then I'll come back with those changes.
Well, let's open it up to council for questions first.
Well, since I really don't have, I'm not involved in business and stuff like that.
The same question over again is what is property taxes from the food selling businesses in downtown? Valuations of the businesses and the amount of money that they spend on building. They are being directly competed with someone who doesn't have that same capital, yet wants, to me, if you're going to do business and compete, then we need to be, as us as a governing body, we need to make it equal. So we can't allow one group to basically find a loophole to compete against someone who has hundreds of thousands of dollars, upwards of millions of dollars invested. It's not a fair playing field, so we need to make sure we're fair. So if the fee schedule says, oh, well, that's too high, I don't understand. Well, I understand completely, because if I'm the guy paying property taxes on a $500,000 building and have a business in downtown Montgomery, I don't want somebody I have to compete with paying a fraction of that. So as a governing body, we need to be equal. I don't want no special treatments across the board. And that's what I'm looking at.
I'll pull that property tax information.
Thank you, Casey. Property taxes last year went up drastically on those commercial businesses. Bill, I don't think that, of course, is the shop property there. It went up almost 2 times, still having. All my commercial pieces do too.
Most in Montgomery County did it.
Very good.
Other issue that came up, and I think it's covered somewhere in the statement in here about getting permission, if there's a selling of something that is similar to an institution that's already there, that in their process of permission to vend there. Did
I'm not following.
If someone's gonna set up with a special permit in front of a like product place, coffee in front of coffee was the issue. Did we put that in, or there's some sort of process to go through that special permit that says we don't grant a special permit unless there's permission by, and we talked about this way back. It didn't seem fair to me to set up in somebody's yard right across the street, selling the same product.
So I guess here's my point to that. We have to be fair and equal across the board. So if we are charging a fee, that equals the same fee that the brick and mortar pays, then competition rules. So if that business comes in and pays the same fee schedule and can compete, well, that's just tough luck for the guy that's there if he can't compete. Because that's the economy we live in. And, if you can't compete, I'm sorry.
I have a question for the future. Are food trucks only going to be allowed in food courts? Or will they be allowed just on any agreed location?
The ordinance as proposed, they will be allowed in the commercial district, the industrial district, and the institutional district. If they want to go in another district, they have to get city council approval to do that.
So change residential.
And that's all uses. The way our ordinance reads, if a use is not listed on that table, the city council has the authority to allow that use by special use. The food courts are 2 or more in a single location, getting together to sell food together. And then mobile food units are just the individual ones that you see around the jurisdiction.
And food courts but food trucks are not considered to be equal as far as how, materially speaking, as a site-based restaurant? What?
It's more of a license. We're providing a license to do business instead of a brick and mortar
And these
business.
licenses are temporary?
Temporary, yes.
Okay. Then I'm sorry. go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Nikki, can you go? Never mind. Yeah, so if you go back to the fee schedule, it talks about the duration on there. So, like I said, we can, my proposal, and another thing is I'm thinking about staff time. We're a very small staff. I don't want to overburden us with having many, so say if we had a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month permit, logistically that would be hard if we had a lot of people coming in and asking for those permits. So I will always try to look for opportunities to make things less bureaucratic and more manageable for us. For me, that flat 6 month permit for $600, I don't know, I just landed on that some reason, kind of addressing the brick and mortar issue, but not being so prohibitive that people are not going to make their business here.
Right.
So I'm just trying to find that balance.
Okay, $100.
$100 a month, yeah. But the way it reads now, I think we have one month fee and a 6 month fee. I was proposing just to eliminate the 1 month altogether, just
Right.
having a flat 6 month. Makes it easier on us to track, easier to enforce.
Right.
$600, you're gonna spend $600, you're gonna want to do some business, so you're gonna be serious about it. Another thing I changed in here that I think will help is that you can come in and apply, go through the process, we're not gonna charge you a fee until we're ready to approve it. Whereas before, we're gonna take your money, and then you could apply with the process, you might get denied. So I don't wanna do that, I don't think you should be doing that to the businesses, so for me, we'll help you with that process, and when we get to a point where we feel it's ready to be approved, then we can pay your permit. So at least that lessens that burden on the front end. But again, this is so arbitrary, the fees. I just haven't found any consistency out there. I mean, a lot of cities are stacking fees. They're charging for an application fee, a fire inspection fee, food inspection permit, so we don't have all that stuff. You gotta get your county permit, but for us, you know, we're just checking to make sure that you have all the stuff you need to have now.
Most cities also require a law.
Sure.
They're not expensive. They require a law.
Mhm.
Which I think is all city or the city. They're not expensive. They're not expensive.
Seems that everything under 64-31 covers a lot of the other fairness issues. It seems to me, Casey's point is about buy-in and fairness. If we could get some sort of way to measure that, that might suffice.
Okay, well, I can pull the property tax records for all the food selling businesses in downtown. I can go back and I'll do a little deeper dive into the fee schedule to see if maybe I can come up with some good examples and something that would work for us. If I can, I'll bring that back.
But because they're not permanent establishments,
Right.
I don't think they ought to be subjected to paying the same amount of tax as a permanent brick and mortar establishment. I think that's putting undue duress on a small business. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and it's whatever the philosophy of council wants to do that. And that's why I kind of landed on that 600 bucks, something like that. To me, that seems kind of fair.
When I say that I want to accrue over 8 years, if you're gonna be here for 8 years, you're gonna pay the equivalent. That's not a one-time fee where you come and have to pay that all at once. But if we're gonna be here and operate long-term, then they should be treated like a long-term business and not a mobile unit. And the fact that they are mobile, they can choose to move. If they don't, that's fine, do business, we want your business, but we have to treat them, we have to be very careful in the fact that we have people who have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars invested that have to compete against other businesses that can come to us as they grow without that same buy-in. They don't have the same tax.
And I don't know that they're necessarily competing though. Oftentimes,
Not
one
always,
business
but I'm just
competes
saying.
another.
I'm just saying, we have to look at it from a broad perspective. Right now, we don't have any competition, but tomorrow we might, or next month we might. So we have to look at it from down the road. I don't want to change this ordinance every 6 months, right? I want to be a
Yeah, but
good,
we're asking them
solid
to reapply every 6 months. They're getting a temporary permit. So if we want to talk about, hey, no temporary permits, this is a permit for you to do business, that we can talk about that, but I don't know how much sense that makes for a mobile unit.
because it is mobile. And they can just shut and go somewhere else and then come back, right? 6 months, that permit's still good for the entire 6 months. Right? It's not, I have to pay, I leave and I have to pay again. That brick and mortar does not have the option
Because
to
if
move their building somewhere else.
if that's
on
the
weekend.
case, if you're moving about, you're making a good argument for why they are not competition for brick and mortar.
If they do move, they're fine, but that's the problem, we don't deal with, we have our ordinance right now deals with, if they move, fine, but we don't have anything that deals with something that with the long term. And all I'm saying is, if we're gonna have long term,
So
then we
maybe
have to
that
be
needs to be
fair.
another element, the long term, that you look at, but the way it's set up now for a temporary permit, I don't see the logic in submitting a temporary food establishment to the same constraints as brick and mortar.
So you say we should treat brick and mortar more harshly because they invested millions of dollars in our city?
No, that is absolutely not what I'm saying.
But that's exactly what we would do with a fee schedule.
I disagree.
If we charge somebody more to do business, then we're
I don't
punishing them.
think they're the same. I don't think they're the same kind of businesses. I think you're comparing apples to oranges. I
So,
don't think they're the
If
same.
I come in and sell hamburgers and we have a hamburger joint, we're not the same business.
You may be in the same business, but it's not the same establishment. It's not the same.
Well, I can give you a quote though from a business owner downtown, okay? He says, I would rather take this building, turn it into something else, put his food truck out there and play by food truck rules than to try to keep paying the rent or whatever else is due to air conditioning and things that he has to do. That, now picture that in a historic zone especially.
Okay.
That's my concern. If you're really burdening the people who have been there for years and years and years and bought in over years and years, okay, and they've got their own parking, their own restaurant, they're taking care of their business. You can't come in there and have somebody playing by a different set of rules. That's what Casey is saying.
But so are we saying that we want to make business, the ability to do business as hard as we can for food truck vendors? We can say that. We don't want food truck vendors in the city.
You just
All
want
I'm
to
saying is I
have
want to play by the same rules everybody else has to. That's it.
They're not the same businesses. They're two
They're a food
totally
business,
different things.
making money off of food,
It's not
correct?
that simple.
It's actually very simple in the fact that if I have a food truck, I can run it by myself. Or if I have a brick and mortar, good luck running it by yourself. You have to have
Well,
employees.
that's the business.
Employees also
chose.
bring income to these cities, right?
Yeah. I just
So-
think that they're two different things.
There's many things that we benefit from a brick and mortar. We benefit from a food truck. You're right, there are two different things. We benefit from the business that different food trucks come in and we get this different crowd. That's absolutely great. But we have to be equal. If we're not treating both businesses the same, then we are special treatment for one or the other.
I don't think they're equal businesses, which is the reason why we're doing the temporary permit in the first place. I don't think they're equal.
They both have their own different expenses. They both have their own benefits. But at the end of the day, as a city, we just have to treat them the same. Everything needs to be very equal. Otherwise, you can loophole anything if you try,
Absolutely.
right? So we try to have loopholes out.
Yeah, but I think what we have here is the brick and mortars saying we don't want any competition, and I thought that's what capitalism
That's
is
not all
about.
they're saying. They're just saying they're taking the brunt of the expense. Because sewer and water. Who pays sewer and water? Who does?
I would think that if
Something
they're going to be
maybe
set up
ourselves.
somewhere, they ought to be paying water.
Many of them are self-contained, so they get to come and do business. They don't have a toilet, so you go there and whose toilet are they going to use?
But if they're self-contained, then they're not using our facilities if they're self-contained.
That person eating that food's got to go to the bathroom somewhere.
Well, if you're walking up to a food truck, you're probably going to get your food and go back home.
Not, there's picnic tables all over the place.
business there.
And
I mean, that's the thing, you have to look at everything. In fact, it's not just, oh, here I'm about to sell food. It's, what else is this person providing to his customer? What else does he provide? That we have to take it equal, and we're just not right now. We're not equal in any way, shape, or form.
Would it be
Yeah.
helpful to look at fees based on location?
Russell.
So say if you want to do locate in a certain area, should we look at a different fee schedule based on that? So if you're in the outer parts of the city, not in the city center, maybe the fee needs to be different than if you're going to set up somewhere that's close to our current brick and mortar businesses.
Well, obviously, it needs to be comparable, I think. I mean, Casey and my point is it needs to be comparable to where they're setting up to do business. Otherwise,
So I'm saying, so if you want to locate in the city center, then you pay this fee. If you want to locate in this, out in another district or another area, maybe look at
that
another.
could be fine.
I don't know, that's why it's a difficult situation.
It's a tough one.
The fact that you want it to be very fair for both individuals, right? 'Cause I don't want to say, no, we don't want small businesses, I love businesses, right? I like going and getting me a hot dog, I like going, I eat ice cream, I go I eat ice cream, but I can't. But I like it when the food trucks come. But I also don't want to be with no downtown restaurants, because they got put out of business because we didn't, you know.
Take care of our business.
So it's fair to say that the fee schedule is really kind of the sticking point for us, okay. Well, how about if I go back, let me work on it a little bit. Planning commission still has to do their thing, so I can put together some more information, pull the tax info, get those comps, Just come back with some alternatives for us to talk about and decide.
How much cheaper could you possibly get $100 a month?
Right.
It's up to y'all.
I tried to pull tax information from 4 different food trucks in town, and this is like everybody's paid any taxes, so I can't find it. So I did a records request at the state, but I did speak to one owner who said he paid about $825 for 1 month. So what, 2% of that goes to the city. So that's more than $100 a month. Because if you don't do any kind of permit fee and they're not paying taxes, then what are they paying? They're not contributing to the city.
If you don't do at least $100 a month, he does not pay down to the employees. Fill out the application.
So I'm not so interested in it as much as the sales tax, because if you do business, you're supposed to pay your sales tax, right? I'm not a sales tax police. But what I am interested in is the property tax.
Okay, so I didn't know that we were having public
Yeah.
comment, but I'll
Go ahead.
chirp in here a little bit.
Go ahead.
So in a sense, we do pay sales tax because you would be totally, crawled up on by the state if you didn't pay sales tax. We have a sales tax license we pay quarterly. So that equation with me is the fact that I do pay property tax. That's garnered by the county. So whatever they deem the property tax to be, it is.
So, Katie, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My issue with that, Bill, and I know you pay property tax for, you have your lots, you gotta pay it, they put a lien on your house, they do taxes, right? But at the end of the day, the county doesn't account for the business that you run off of it, right? And that brick and mortar, they do. They value that building, and they value that land, right?
All the time, yes, it is.
Right? And you don't have to pay that, so that gives you an unfair advantage.
I think there's a disconnect too, though, just back to the coffee shop, because they're renters. So you're comparing apples to oranges on the conversation of, again, like Pat said, the renters for the coffee shop, they didn't have near the startup that Bill had, even though they're in a brick and mortar, because they're renters. So who really is the fly-by-night? And then on top of that, you're gonna lump in street festivals into one $50 permit fee, where you invite 100 vendors into our town for one day to come in and do business, where we're not gonna prove whether or not they're doing any sales and use tax. They're gonna use all of our facilities, trash our streets, tear up our roadways, all of that, and there's no compensation, and we gave it to them for $50. So where's the balance between the $600 and that $50? Because the damage is a whole lot greater on a giant festival when the $50 fee is there, and we're lumping it all under one. And we're losing a whole lot more, especially the larger the festival gets, and the more outside of town we move it, because those people aren't coming into the city to where we need the foot traffic for all of our small businesses. So the difference here is he owns his property, and he's one. I know that there's another food truck here, Park, that we're talking about too. They own their property too. So we're talking about people who own their property versus renters, and I just want to make sure y'all are considering that too.
The coffee shop is owned by Denise and her husband, so they own that building.
And I'd like to add, this is Dick from P and Z, so I can help shed a little light. I think the numbers will be crushed. We need a little more information from Jerry. I think that will become clear on fees, so there are some things that you consider. The one thing we said was, please keep perspective. Food trucks are very specialized, one item, very small income, revenues, potential compared to restaurants. Huge difference. So I think that's probably what Patricia was getting at.
How do you feel that way?
Well, simply a restaurant has a huge menu and all kinds of potential for income. A food truck is really a different animal. So
I have a friend that she doesn't do business here. She has a pizza truck. She thought that's one way in steakhouse.
well, you can say what you want.
Well, she does.
But I think that's probably will come up with the numbers when they get close.
So
The
you guys-
potential of a food truck, yeah, for income, depending on what you're selling, can crush a restaurant parking. If you want to argue that point, drive down to go to a ball game in Minute Maid Park. They completely demolished bars and restaurants all across the street. They built a food truck park.
Well, all I know is they work.
Population there,
We need to look
compared to
at
the population here.
But what I'm saying is, if you want to look at a food truck and say, well, the income's not there, well, that same restaurant's still at the same population path, so you have to look at the same numbers the same way. So your number ratio is going to
But
be,
in the real world, you look at things like Old Town Spring, anywhere, then you've got a combination. So let's just make it work. I mean,
absolutely,
what-
combination is fine, as long as we're equal.
And I agree with the case, competition, and we want to see the mix. Let's face it, Montgomery is an eclectic mix, old and new. The one thing that came out of the study for the Texas A&M, and the comprehensive plan is we need walkability, and anything downtown in the historic district really helps with walkability. We want to park a car and walk around. So I think that's where we've always had a lot of discussions about food trucks in the historic area. And I think this comes down to aesthetics. We improve, the signage. If it's wholesome, if it's something offensive, people love it. They walk around, brings people in. But that's what we got to work on. And I know these guys at the food truck park are trying to work with us on that, because that needs to be walkable with the crosswalk, for instance. So as we develop our comprehensive plan moving forward, I think this is great. We need to talk about it, because we definitely have a difference of opinion. But I think the numbers will come together. We look at let's look at true cost, what it's costing. We've only got 2 or 3 restaurants, so I'm not sure what's really competing with it. I mean, hot dog stand didn't really compete with anybody. And the ice cream stand doesn't really compete with anybody either.
And that's the thing, I'm not saying that they do, but what we are saying is that those people that use those other things, they're not being provided restrooms, they're not being provided all the things that a restaurant does, that those people are also now taking advantage of other people downtown. If I'm a restaurant owner, I'm not gonna tell, oh, well, you're a full ice cream, you can't come in here. No, that's not what they're doing. And it's not just the restaurants, right?
Right.
Go down to one of these antique stores and ask them, how many people come in and just use their bathroom?
Well, we consider all that. We do have that.
But how do you know that
We
this
have a bathroom that people can walk
away
to.
from the trucks?
I'm not, but what I'm saying is I'm not gonna stand down there and count, right? But I have to take
Well, I
the word
think we
of
have
the
to, if
people
we're gonna
who,
make policy based on
I have to
this
take the
type of
word of the people
statements.
that are there, okay? And if they say, I'm not gonna go, oh, I don't believe you, but if they're telling us, hey, yeah, we get traffic from them, and a lot of times it's just the bathroom. Okay, yes, I have asked every single one of them several times, do I have a problem with food trucks? Absolutely not. I have told Bill several times, put 10 down here. If it's bringing money to the city of Montgomery, I'm happy about that. But on the same turn, I don't want to isolate or alienate people that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a brick and mortar. So my whole goal here is to try to make both sides happy, which is very, very difficult. But the only way to do that is to say, if you're paying this, you're paying this. And then we walk away and let competition do its thing.
Pat, I think the presence of all of those signs that have popped up, this parking is mine, this parking is mine, only customers use my bathroom speaks for itself. That's a reaction to the reality that those people have been experiencing. Okay? And so they see somebody park, they go across to a business, they come back over here for a bathroom. But if you look at 63-31, it details sketch illustrating blah, 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 applicable location of trash receptacles that are yours, bathrooms that are yours, parking area and seating. It's covered.
I'm just concerned that
Yeah.
we're talking about making policy based on a microcosm of something that's happened in that little block with those particular vendors.
And that particular area is a historic district, and it's a
And I
finite
think the
place.
policy needs to be wider
I
and bigger than
understand,
that.
but I think Gary's point is perhaps there is
So why
a
would the
difference
same
there
policy,
than another zone.
happening at Kroger parking lot. If somebody wanted to set up a food truck out by Kroger's, why couldn't we apply the same law?
Well, if someone sets up a food truck in Kroger's parking lot,
No, next to it. If they go to Philip and say, hey, we want to rent this for the weekend and set up a food.
and if the policy would apply, the ordinance would
So
apply.
why would they do it, right?
Yes.
So what would be the difference? I don't understand why. They can set up anywhere in the city.
I know, I'm talking about the different personality conflicts that we've had with the restaurant and the, one restaurant in particular, and the food trucks. Let's not make policy based upon, solely based upon.
Absolutely.
on
It's not
that.
solely.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I want it to be very equal across the board, so I don't care where they set up. You walk out there, you say, here's the policy, follow it.
So maybe we can avoid some of it by just putting some actual nice downtown signs that say public restrooms and direct them to our city public restrooms that are literally right down the street. Maybe that's a I'm just saying, like, we have public restrooms that as a city, we're paying for the maintenance and the usage of all of it for that purpose, or walking for people who are out and about. Why couldn't we just throw some signs up? Maybe they don't know that there's a public restroom available, and that's why they're going to these businesses, because they're out walking.
Absolutely. That's right.
I mean, if I visited this town for the first time, I wouldn't know there was public restrooms over there.
So I have a question, just because I've had food trucks visit our location. As far as enforcement is concerned, so right now, the ordinance is that so that the property owner has to give a letter approving them to be there. Then they can get a 6-month permit.
That's what
But if say I approve, I give a letter and say that this food truck can be here, they get their permit for 6 months. Can they only be at my location? Or can they then be at other locations? Because at this point right now, the way it's happening, and I think it needs to be thought about when we're, writing this ordinance, is that how do you regulate where they can be? If right now you're requiring owners to say that they're permitted to be there, then how do you know if they're there or if they're not allowed? So like, say, I talked to the lady that was at Randy's the other day. She says, oh, no, I don't need to go to the city and get another one. I don't need a letter from you. And I thought, oh, I think you do, because what if someone comes and knocks on your door? But for them, they see this permit, they paid it once. I'm good for 6 months now. So just some thought into that moving forward.
Said something about
That's what I was trying to say.
location in the
The
ordinance.
permit
Yes.
would say address.
Yeah, and it needs to be communicated, I guess, because
how is
right
it
now
knowable?
it's not.
The permits that I issue right now for these vendors, if for a certain location, if they've got a letter of permission, we actually physically tell them in the email when we're providing them that it has to be this location. If you move anywhere else, you've got to provide me another letter.
I thought that was
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they can go to different locations as long as they have a permit.
So would you have a different category for, say, let's just say, because I'll be honest, I don't like having the same food truck at my stand repetitively. There's large business studies that show that variation in your food trucks actually is better, that you'll get more people coming. And so what about maybe a broader one that's $600 or more expensive, saying I can go to multiple locations in the city during this time period? I don't know, but, I mean, it's just some thoughts. I'm
It's the
not
same
saying-
deal, we need some number to work
So
with.
the fee schedule wouldn't have to do with the location, that's based on permission, based on the landowner, right? So if you give them permission.
Okay.
And Bill gives them permission,
Yes.
they pay their fee to operate in the city of Montgomery.
They just have to
need
tell them.
permission from the person.
Okay.
And they also need to apply to the
Okay.
city when they get their permit that, hey, I have 2 letters of location.
Or if they get it from
Right.
What about a definition of mobile food truck versus non-mobile food truck? And the difference of that versus, like, what if the fee was a non-mobile versus a mobile? Your mobile, you charge more because they're gonna variety hop all over, and your non-mobiles, you maintain their fees that are like any other peddler, solicitor, or
Would make it not,
the fact that they're using one address.
But
The mobile one allows them to hop between.
They
something to be mobile versus non-mobile. So the distinction there would be, some people have seen the coffee shop that a friend of mine built. It was a mobile coffee shop, but it was not mobile, right? You set it up in place, they brought it in, you set it up, you take the wheels off, it sits on its frame, and it's not designed to move. The county says, because it's built basically like a trailer home, and you can jack it up, put the wheels on, and haul it off, it is mobile. Just like a mobile home, whether you put it on a concrete pad and hold it down, it is still a mobile home, like any bank, insurance company that wants to look at it. It's
And that would be
mobile.
set within the definition, like Gary defined the rest of these, you know. That's just literally, I'm just saying one address versus the opportunity to float between multiple addresses, because it's not just Jennifer that likes a different food truck all the time. A Plants has the same thing, and several other things. You know, if we have a festival, an antique festival, a wine fest, fill in the blank in our downtown, maybe those are all gonna fall under your street festivals anyways, but, you know, food trucks wanna come and they wanna move around, they charge one fee versus one address, you get a different fee. I don't know.
Something to think about.
So when they come in and apply, we can make it where if they wanted to, on the front end, talk to a property owner and say, hey, over the next 6 months, I want to go to these 5 locations. And they've got permission from each one of those property owners to do that within that 6 months. I think we can get some language together that will provide for that, as long as they have that permission. And you're saying capture that under one permit fee.
Right, I mean, just, and you're talking about trying to not encumber them with paperwork or your staff with,
Yeah.
you know, having to approve them every time a letter comes out, you know, just trying to simplify things. And that's just feedback, I mean, obviously, y'all are gonna make your decision. I did have one more thing.
Well, before we move on to that, what are your thoughts? You're ready to look at language and try to come back with something that will provide for multiple locations under one permit for one fee? Or do you want to stick with one location, one fee? If you want to do multiple locations, it's the same fee for multiple locations.
I think it should just be the
What
same.
happens if one person owns the property and has a trailer on it? Explain that one to me.
I'm sorry, sir,
It's
say it one more
it's
time?
still a permit for the business.
Okay.
So,
But
he
they
doesn't
own
need
the
a
property.
letter, he doesn't need a letter from himself saying he's gonna get that address. Now, if he like to move, he would need a letter from somebody else. Or just, maybe he has several properties in town and he wants to move around, well, just list those addresses for your mobile permit, and guess what, you're covered. So, yeah, I'm confused by
Mr.
that.
Palmer, so just to go back here, Julie had mentioned about the restrooms and things like this, and Mayor mentioned about trash cans and things like that. So I've had a trash can at my establishment from day one. You would not believe the amount of alcoholic containers I have picked up and put in my trash can. McDonald's containers, empty beer bottles, beer cans, this and that. So people are moving around and utilizing. Maybe the city needs to have more trash cans around. But I mean, I've picked up a lot of trash that wasn't an ice cream spoon or a wrapper or a half-eaten cone. So I mean, there's a multitude of things. I mean, we and I'm not trying to make this look like you guys are all pinpointing me. I'm not, but I'm just saying you've tried to be good stewards in cleaning up everybody's trash. And this is the first time I've even voiced it. But I mean, we addressed that there are multiple, that there's trash cans. People don't use this trash can because it belongs to them. I don't care. The whole thing is pick it up. It drives me nuts when you go down 2854 and you look on the side of the road and it looks like somebody just opened up a trash truck and drove down the road and just let it all go out. So I mean, there's a multitude of different things that the city as a whole and businesses, community, whatever, need to look at in keeping our city useful, clean, and eye-catching to everybody. But I mean, I'm going to address this in the next 15 minutes, trying to get as a citizen. But there's a lot of things as a city that we need to really look at that needs to, because there are. I care about every one of these establishments that's in this city. And Montgomery's got to look at how we're going to bring people in here and get them to start. because right now, when you go from Lone Star Parkway, and they stop at that stoplight, now they got a choice, 2854 or Lone Star Parkway, or come out 105. We know the construction's coming. That's only gonna be a nightmare for not only the people that live here, and businesses, and everybody that depends on the traffic coming in. But it's also going to cumbersome the people going west and east on 105. So as a community and as a whole, we better start thinking more about how we're going to attract and get people to stop. Because in the people's mindsets, when they're coming out 105, they're rolling. How do we get them to make a right-hand turn into the historic district to begin with, to want to stop and patronize all the different businesses and community people that we have there? That should be more of a topic than anything.
Thank you, Bill. All right, we're going to tie this up. I do have one more thing, and Cheryl and I were at a library meeting and heard this probably for the second or third time. And I don't know exactly where this fits, but there are some that want to set up in our city that are 501c. And under some circumstances, it seems that they're charged a fee just like any other vendor. I'd like staff to look into that because we have exemptions for certain things, but I don't see 501c nonprofits being able to set up even at the marketplace on Saturday, for example. And again, I don't know exactly where they would fit, but in the ordinance or under exemptions for fees for festivals or something to the effect that would allow our Lions Club and Library Club and
It's under section 432. Page 8.
It was in the original, right?
It's actually on the application.
so are they getting charged?
They should not be getting charged, but on the application, now, if an applicant does not put they are a charity, a 501c3 or a public organisation, we're not going to know that to ask for their certificates, so.
So the parade is the same thing?
What's that?
The parade is, okay, very good.
So it should be. Right, it should be.
It should be.
Okay.
I will have
Any
a
parade and everything that we do should be in there.
Civic function.
Yes. Any civic function. Okay. All right, we have a meeting in 8 minutes or so it is 5:52. Workshop is